Hassan Huttle loving life then as Saints beat Spurs by 3-2. Spurs, of course, with the opportunity to close the gap on fourth place. Very much a missed chance there. Excellent from Southampton. That win for them moves them up to 10th in the table. From on this, let's welcome in, shall we, Julien Laurent and Frank Leboeuf before we go to the French contingents. Let's start with the Scots, shall we?
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you where we'll start. I'll tell you what Spurs deserved. Nothing.
Really?
Absolutely nothing. I mean, Southampton were excellent. Bearing in mind the difference in budgets, bearing in mind the players that have gone in and out, bearing in mind Spurs are a team that are in the fight for the top four, amongst some other mediocre sides, particularly in the first half, Southampton were brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Spurs' 2 goals were an own goal and then a debatable free kick that went their way. If you can't keep the ball in the middle of the park, if you can't have good ball retention, how can you relieve pressure, even from a team like Southampton, who did keep the ball and pass it around? I mean, I'm sorry, that has done nothing to convince me or anybody else, I think, that Spurs are the real deal for the top 4. They're not the only team we're saying that about. They were bad.
When you think of the Conte side, you think hard to break down, good solid foundations. Those 2 goals that they conceded late on were absolutely at the opposite end of all of that.
Well, they conceded those 2 late on, but I'll tell you what, by that stage they could have had 5.
Right.
That's the honest truth. And I think sometimes we look too much at managers. I can't disagree with what you said. You think of Conte, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
The fact is, if you don't have players that can actually follow what you're telling them, then it doesn't matter how good a coach you are. And Spurs, particularly at the back and in the middle of the park, have very, very, very average football players.
Right.
And I'm reading today that Romero's going to be signed for 50 million. I mean, he has done in my eyes, he's done absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're playing the middle of a back 3, you're supposed to be the general. You're supposed to be telling everybody where they need to be. You need to be wide, or you need to come up, or you need to go out, whatever it is. And you're going to turn around and spend 50 million on a guy who you wouldn't even have noticed today. You wouldn't have said he was worth 20 million. So, back to middle, this team is just plain bang average.
Frank?
Well, I want to say to Stevie that I was following the game on the French television, and the commentator found Romero absolutely solid and spot on the whole game long. Just to tell you,
That's brilliant. By the way, did somebody explain to him they lost 3 goals and it should have been 6? But he was fantastic. Yeah, right.
No, I completely agree with you. But just to emphasize what the guy said, I don't understand what Conte did. I mean, you have somebody on the right side, Emerson Royal, playing as a wing back, or I don't know how we call them now, those players. When you have a Doherty, who I think would have served the team better, I found, and I love that about the Saints, that they had a team spirit, they had a mind, spot on to work together. They had an idea of how they wanted to play, where on the other side, it was almost nothing. Sometimes you have the individuals who can make a difference, Son, Kane, Højbjerg. Yes, but after that, I don't see anything coming out of this team. And I'm sorry, even if Conte has proved of being a very good coach, today, I saw a very good coach, and it wasn't on that side, it was a sane coach.
Jules?
Yeah, all of that is true, of course. I mean, Spurs were dreadful in that first half, 35% of the ball at home in the Premier League, when you're in that fight for the top 4, where you have to produce something, that you have Kane and Son up front that you need to give service to, and instead you can't even put 3 passes together. I mean, the boys, Craig, I think, said about the midfield. I mean, Højbjerg today, I know he's involved on the first goal, on the Bednarek goal, but the rest of his game was atrocious, really bad. I mean, Winks is not much better, and Bentancur came on quite late, maybe too late, to be fair. He didn't have much of an impact, but he didn't even look into the game either. either. And I think there's so much work to be done. Remember, we left them in that game at Chelsea where Conte got the tactics so defensive that he got it wrong, really. And then today, which I think, again, he should have been far better inspired. I know now you can shout on the players and say, oh, they're not good enough. Look at the midfield, look at this, look at that, of course. I'm not sure that Conte is not to blame either by the fact that they had such a terrible game today.
You know, I mentioned Højbjerg a few weeks ago. He's decent at what he does. That's running around and blocking and, you know, playing the ball 10 yards. He's a classic player that's going to make a bundle of cash out the game that has the inability to pass the ball more than 20 yards from a midfielder.
Right.
A midfielder who can't really play a long, raking ball. Bentancur can, and probably will. Right?
Yeah, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I have played with somebody like Didier Deschamps who wasn't able to make a passes more than 15 yards. But you know, I think those players, they serve the team, they defend well, and you have to give a little bit of credit with Højbjerg. I was, of course, very bad today, but that guy is maybe fed up. Running for the others, not being helped out by anybody else. Wings was absolutely invisible today, and if you have a big game, nobody can try to sort the problems out at your place. So it's a real problem from him. Yes, he's not a fantastic player. Yes, I agree with you. He's a classic player, but he works hard. At least there is one guy who works hard for like the past 2 years. He has been playing for Spurs. But he cannot be the only guy working hard in the middle of the park as well.
Maybe him and Bentancur will be a better partnership, we'll see. They might end up having to play, you know, that right-back position's been a problem. Serge Aurier,
sure.
Right wing-back, right-back, call it what you want. Matt Doherty came in from Wolves, played in a wing-back role more often than not under Nuno Espirito Santo. Then Mourinho went to a back four. He found himself isolated. I do agree with Frank on that point. I don't think Doherty's the best player out there, but I think he's understands the game better than Emerson Royal. Understands it better. They might end up playing Kulusevski as a wing back.
Yeah.
Possibly. I mean, there's maybe an option out there. But listen, if this had been Mourinho managing this team, we'd have been slaughtering it.
Right.
That's how bad it was. Southampton and I agree, Hasenhüttl's a good coach. What he's doing with what he's got. I mean, they don't spend any money. They just lose players for fun. You know, Adams and Broja up front and Romeo, and it's just, you know, what he's getting out of them is unbelievable. But to have 23 efforts on goal to Tottenham's 8 or whatever it is and outplay them in that way, I mean, just completely outplay them. And the World Feed commentator was Martin Tyler. And this is how bad it was. In the first half, he said, at one point, he went, oh, they're all lining up to have a shot at goal now. Southampton. I mean, that's bad.
You use the word mediocre, and that kind of sums up those teams that are chasing that place in the Champions League at the moment. Just to remind you how things stand. Obviously, it will be City, it will be Liverpool, it will be Chelsea who will make the top four. It's all about that fourth place at the moment. And according to the bookies, it's tight, isn't it? Well, Spurs are still the favourites.
Well, they had 3 games in hand on Man United going into tonight's game.
Yeah.
So they've blown one of them. And would you?
Yeah, I wouldn't bet on anyone.
No, I wouldn't.
It's not really.
I mean, if Tottenham won the 2 games, then they're in 4th place.
But you look on paper, you think home against Southampton. Well, that's 3 points.
How do you explain Man United, Arsenal, and Tottenham being there fighting for the 4th spot?
Yeah.
West Ham, kind of everybody's. They want them to do well type of team, right?
Yeah.
But so-called big names who are just bang average and who have no identity whatsoever. When you watch the 3 of them, well, definitely 2 of them, I would say that Arsenal have got now some sort of identity. They just can't score goals. But the other 2, you have no idea what you're going to get when they step on the field.
Thank you very much for watching ESPN FC on YouTube. For more highlights, analysis and exclusive content, be sure to subscribe.